My name is Isabella. I am 28 years old. And if you saw me on that day, you would have seen a woman impeccably dressed, a polite smile plastered to her face, blending seamlessly into the tapestry of joy. The air in the grand ballroom of the Omni Hotel in Atlanta was thick with the cloying sweetness of lilies and expensive perfume, a scent that now forever brings a shiver to my spine. My sister Clara was getting married, a vision in ivory lace, her laughter echoing like chimes against the high ceilings. Every single guest radiated happiness, a collective euphoria I felt utterly detached from. I watched as the photographer snapped picture after picture, capturing fleeting moments of supposed perfection. There was my father, beaming with pride, adjusting Clara's veil with a tenderness he'd rarely shown me. Then, my mother, poised and elegant in a tailored silk dress, her eyes fixed on Clara with an intensity that burned. That gaze, so full of unreserved adoration, was a familiar sting. I'd seen it countless times, always directed at Clara, never quite reaching me. It was a silent, constant hum beneath the surface of my life. A deep, unacknowledged ache. Beneath the surface of silk and smiles, a different truth throbbed. I felt the sharp edges of the crystal champagne flute in my hand, grounding me, reminding me that this glittering facade was fragile. The murmur of congratulations, the clinking of glasses, the soft strains of the string quartet. It all felt distant, like a dream I was observing rather than living. I found myself counting the delicate folds in the tablecloth, trying to focus on anything but the undeniable, visceral feeling of being utterly unseen, a ghost at a celebration that should have felt like a family triumph. My throat tightened, a dry, uncomfortable sensation that had nothing to do with thirst. It was the weight of years, the accumulation of countless small slights and overlooked achievements, pressing down on my chest. I took a slow, measured breath, the delicate embroidery on my gown feeling oddly constricting. This wasn't just another family gathering. This was Clara's pinnacle, and I was merely a shadow in its brilliant light. I knew with a certainty that chilled me to the bone that this day, already etched in my memory, was about to become something far more indelible, something irrevocably broken. The morning of the wedding dawned with an almost cruel perfection, the kind of vibrant blue sky and gentle breeze that seemed orchestrated by a celestial event planner. Sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows of the opulent ballroom, illuminating every carefully placed rose petal, every shimmering goblet. It was Amelia's day, and everything, down to the last gilded detail, whispered of her flawless elegance. I watched from a quiet corner as guests began to trickle in, their hushed whispers and admiring glances fixed on the blossoming perfection that was my sister Amelia. She was radiant, a vision in ivory lace, her smile a beacon of pure, unadulterated joy. Walking towards her, my own movements felt stiff, as if I were merely a shadow in this brightly lit scene. "Amelia, you look absolutely breathtaking," I murmured, my voice a little husky. Her eyes, sparkling like freshly cut diamonds, met mine for a fleeting moment before sweeping past me to the mirror. "Oh, Izzy, do you really think so? I've been so worried about the fitting," she chirped, fussing with a stray curl. Her excitement was infectious, and for a split second, I almost forgot the familiar ache that usually settled in my chest around her. Then Mother appeared, a force of nature in a silken gown that seemed to ripple like liquid gold. Her gaze, as always, was laser-focused on Amelia. "My darling girl," she cooed, her hands immediately adjusting Amelia's veil, a gesture of practiced tenderness. Truly a vision, the most beautiful bride this venue has ever seen. Her words were a warm embrace for Amelia, but for me, they landed with the familiar chill of an unspoken comparison. It was a dance we'd performed countless times, a script so ingrained it felt like the very air we breathed. Later, as the photographer arranged Amelia for a solo shot, Mother turned to me, a sudden, almost performative warmth in her eyes. "Isabella, dear, aren't you going to offer your sister some help with her train? She needs to look perfect for the aisle." Her voice was sweet, yet laced with an undertone of gentle command, reminding me of my role, the supportive sister, always in the background. I nodded, stepping forward to adjust the train, my fingers brushing against the rich fabric. "Of course, Mother," I replied, the words feeling foreign and heavy on my tongue. A small smile played on Amelia's lips. Thanks, Izzy, she said, her attention already drifting to the photographer's instructions. I found myself observing the scene, a detached spectator to my own family's narrative. The champagne flutes clinking, the soft murmur of conversations, the scent of white roses and nervous excitement, it all created a perfect illusion. Yet, beneath the polished surface, I felt the familiar currents of expectation and unspoken truth swirling, waiting for the precise moment to break through the carefully constructed facade. The day had barely begun, and already the weight of the past pressed down, a silent promise of what was to come. A shimmer of white satin caught my eye, pulling me from the abyss of my thoughts. It was Clara, my sister, radiant and ethereal in her wedding gown, her smile a beacon that seemed to eclipse the grand chandeliers overhead. Her laughter, light and melodic, drifted across the ballroom, a stark contrast to the heavy silence that had settled around my heart. She genuinely looked happy, a picture of bridal bliss, and for a moment, the bitterness in my stomach curdled into a familiar, painful ache. Isn't she just perfect, Isabella? My mother's voice, now sweet and cloying, reached me. She was standing next to Clara, her hand delicately placed on Clara's veil, adjusting an invisible fold. My little Clara, always so graceful, always so considerate. I watched as she smoothed Clara's hair, her fingers lingering, a tenderness in her gaze I had rarely, if ever, seen directed at me. It was a familiar tableau, one that had played out countless times since we were children. Clara, the swan, me, the duckling. She looks beautiful, Mom, I managed, my voice a little rougher than I intended. Clara turned, her eyes, the same shade of hazel as mine, sparkling with joy. She hadn't heard the earlier exchange, I was sure. Her world was painted in rose gold, and I couldn't bring myself to tarnish it, not yet. Congratulations, Clara, you truly do look stunning. I forced a smile, one that felt like pulling a muscle. Clara beamed, her excitement infectious. Oh, Izzy, thank you. It's all so surreal, isn't it? She reached out, her gloved hand grasping mine, and for a fleeting second, the warmth of her touch almost made me forget my mother's cruel words. I'm so glad you're here. I couldn't imagine this day without you. Her sincerity was genuine, and it cut through the layers of my resentment, if only for a moment. This was my sister, my only sibling, and despite everything, I loved her. But the love was complicated, tainted by years of comparison. My mother, however, seemed incapable of letting the moment simply exist. Of course she's here, darling. She wouldn't miss her big sister's special day. The words were kind, but her tone carried a subtle, almost imperceptible undertone, a faint echo of the earlier dismissal. It was a practiced art, this passive-aggressive affection. Now, where's your father, Clara? He's been looking for you. He wants to have a word before the photos start. Clara, ever obliging, gave my hand a final squeeze. Right, I'll find him. Wish me luck with the family portraits. With a swish of her voluminous skirt, she glided away, leaving me alone with our mother amidst the bustling crowd. The scent of jasmine and roses, once sweet, now seemed to mock me. Every laugh, every clinking glass, every murmur of conversation felt like a spotlight on my isolation. I knew then, with a chilling certainty, that this day, meant for celebration, would instead become a reckoning. The facade of our perfect family, meticulously crafted by my mother over decades, was about to crack. The quiet corridor felt like a different world. Distant laughter from the reception faded. My mother, her perfect smile a thin, tight line, turned to face me. Her expensive perfume seemed cloying, trapping me. Her sharp gaze lacked the warmth she'd shown Sophia moments before. Isabella, she began, voice low, carrying the weight of years. You look adequate. For a bridesmaid, I suppose that's all that's required. My heart stumbled. Mother, what is this about? I managed, voice thin. A dismissive laugh escaped her lips. Oh, Isabella. Always so earnest? Don't you tire of trying so hard? Trying to fit a mold you were never meant for? She stepped closer, eyes narrowing, piercing my composure. Then came the words, delivered with chilling precision. Sophia is my masterpiece, my pride. You. You were always just the other one. The shadow. You'll never be the favorite, Isabella. That's a truth you need to accept. The air thickened, stifling. I felt an icy dread. This was a brutal, definitive declaration of my worthlessness. My throat tightened. Distant clinking glasses felt like cruel mockery. How can you say that? I whispered. Today is about Sophia. About happiness. Her perfectly manicured eyebrow arched. Happiness? You live in a fantasy. This isn't a fairy tale, it's reality. Some people are simply more remarkable, more deserving. I simply wanted you to understand where you stand. Her words hung, heavy. A furious, righteous indignation boiled over. My mother had never loved me, not like a mother should. In that precise moment, something inside me snapped. The years of seeking her approval evaporated. I looked at her, not as my mother, but as a stranger who had just inflicted the deepest wound. A terrifying resolve settled. I would show her exactly where she stood, and it wouldn't be in the shadows. The reception pulsed with a vibrancy that felt almost alien to my own swirling thoughts. Laughter bubbled up from tables laden with food, mixing with the low thrum of the DJ's music. I watched as Clara, radiant in her white gown, danced with her new husband, their joy a tangible thing that seemed to fill every corner of the ballroom. A part of me, the untouched, innocent part, wanted to simply bask in that shared happiness, to forget the chill that had settled over me earlier. Isabella, darling, are you enjoying yourself? Aunt Susan's voice, sweet as honey, broke through my daze. She floated over, smelling faintly of lavender and the expensive perfume she only wore for special occasions. Her eyes, crinkling at the corners, held genuine warmth. Yes, Aunt Susan, it's beautiful, I managed, forcing a smile that felt brittle on my lips. My gaze flickered towards the head table where Mother was holding court, a serene, almost triumphant expression on her face. She looked like the picture of maternal pride, a stark contrast to the woman who had just moments ago stripped me bare with a few cold words. Suddenly, a waiter offered me a glass of champagne, its delicate bubbles tickling my nose. I took a grateful sip, letting the crisp, dry taste momentarily cleanse my palate of the lingering bitterness. People were twirling on the dance floor, a kaleidoscope of colors and motion. I saw a group of Clara's college friends laughing boisterously, and for a fleeting instant, I considered joining them, losing myself in the rhythm. You know, Clara always talked about how much she looked up to you, Aunt Susan continued, completely oblivious to my inner turmoil. Always saying, Isabella is so clever, so artistic. She truly adored you. The unexpected compliment, delivered with such sincerity, pricked at my heart. It was a gentle reminder of the sisterly bond that had, for so long, been a refuge from Mother's scrutiny. An ache bloomed in my chest. If only Mother saw me that way. If only her love wasn't a constantly shifting benchmark I could never quite reach. I watched Clara throw her head back in laughter, her blonde hair shimmering under the chandelier lights. She was everything Mother wanted, everything she celebrated. She was the sunlight, and I was the perpetual shadow. Thank you, Aunt Susan, I replied, my voice softer than I intended. The lie that I could simply exist here, untouched by the underlying currents, felt increasingly flimsy. Every smile I feigned, every polite nod, was an effort. I was a puppet, performing happiness for an audience who didn't know the strings were fraying. Moving away from my aunt, I found myself near the open doors leading to a small patio. A cooler breeze offered a slight reprieve from the oppressive warmth inside. The distant sounds of the city, muted by the venue's walls, provided a different kind of white noise. I leaned against a stone pillar, the rough texture cool against my fingertips, and took a deep breath. The deceptive calm of the reception was just that, deceptive. I knew it, felt it in the pit of my stomach, a knot of unease coiling tighter with every passing minute. The show had just begun. The reception hall glittered, a kaleidoscope of soft lights and laughter, yet I felt like a dark, unwelcome shadow, clinging to the edges of the light. Each chime of a glass, each burst of joyful chatter, only amplified the chasm between their happiness and my simmering despair. My sister, radiant in white, was dancing with her new husband, a vision of what my mother always deemed perfection. Then I saw her, my mother, gliding through the crowd, a practiced smile plastered on her face, embracing distant relatives and playing the role of the proud matriarch to perfection. She was a master performer, and I, her unwitting audience, was about to watch her put on a particularly cruel act. She spotted me leaning against a pillar, a half-empty glass of sparkling cider chilling my palm. Her eyes, usually so sharp and critical when they landed on me, softened into a mock concern as she approached, her silk dress rustling faintly. "Isabella, darling," she cooed, her voice a low, saccharine murmur meant only for my ears. "Why are you hiding back here? This is a celebration. You should be mingling, making connections. You're not getting any younger, you know. Look at your sister, she just glows." "It's what happens when you truly apply yourself, isn't it?" A bitter taste bloomed in my mouth, sharper than any alcohol. "I'm fine, Mother," I replied, my voice flat, a desperate attempt to keep the tremor from my lips, just enjoying the moment. She leaned in closer, a faint scent of lilies and something else, something sharp and acidic emanating from her. "Enjoying? Or observing from the sidelines as usual? You always were one for the background, weren't you? So different from your sister. She always shined, always captivated. It's just natural for her. Some people are just born with that spark, aren't they? It's not something you can learn, my dear. It's inherent. You can try all you want, but you'll never truly be the star. And darling, people notice these things. They notice who truly belongs in the spotlight." Her words, delivered with a gentle, almost sympathetic sigh, twisted in my gut. It wasn't the sting of a fresh wound. It was the slow, agonizing poison of 1,000 tiny cuts, inflicted over decades. The memories flashed, my mother praising my sister's art while dismissing my poetry as a girly hobby, celebrating my sister's college acceptance while barely acknowledging my own, always highlighting my flaws next to my sister's virtues. This wasn't just a wedding day slight. It was the distillation of every single moment of my life where I was deemed less than. This was the core of her truth. A cold, terrifying clarity settled over me, chilling me to the bone. All those years, I had hoped for a different outcome, hoped that one day she would see me, truly see me. But she never would. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Her performance was impeccable, her smile unwavering, but beneath it lay a cruelty so profound it took my breath away. And in that moment, as I watched her turn to greet another guest, her mask firmly back in place, I realized something fundamental had shifted within me. The pain, for the first time, wasn't paralyzing. It was galvanizing. I knew, with an absolute certainty that rattled my bones, what I had to do. The whispers had gone on long enough. It was time for a scream. My hand trembled slightly as I held the microphone, its cold metal a stark contrast to the burning intensity within me. A hush had fallen over the grand ballroom, all eyes fixated on me, Isabella, the quiet sister, the one who usually faded into the background. The air, thick with the scent of jasmine and expensive perfume, felt suddenly heavy, expectant. I took a deep breath, the taste of champagne still lingering on my tongue, but it was bitterness, not celebration, that filled my mouth. "To my beautiful sister Lily," I began, my voice steady, perhaps too steady, a deceptive calm before the storm. "And to David, her wonderful husband. Today marks a new chapter, a testament to love, commitment, and the pursuit of happiness." A few polite smiles flickered across the room. My mother, seated at the head table, offered a tight, encouraging nod, oblivious to the volcano about to erupt. But beyond the joy and celebration, there are truths that often go unspoken. Truths that are sometimes easier to bury under layers of tradition and expectation. I paused, letting my gaze drift from Lily's radiant, confused face to my mother's, where the smile was already beginning to falter. My mother has always had a knack for honesty, often brutal, always direct. She taught me many things, but perhaps the most impactful lesson she instilled was about favoritism. She taught me that some people are simply chosen, destined for the spotlight, while others are not. The murmurs started then, a low hum of unease spreading through the room, like ripples in a calm pond. My mother's face, once composed, was now a mask of dawning horror. Just moments ago, I continued, my voice gaining a raw edge. As I stood here, admiring Lily in her magnificent dress, my mother leaned in and whispered, "You'll never be the favorite." And she was right. Because you, Mom, have always made sure of that. The words hung in the air, a bell tolling the end of pleasantries. The silence that followed was deafening, punctuated only by gasps and the rustle of silk as guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Lily's eyes widened, her bouquet slipping slightly in her grasp. My mother surged to her feet, knocking her chair back with a loud scrape against the polished floor. Her face was contorted, a mixture of fury and disbelief. "Isabella, what in God's name are you doing? This is Lily's day. You are ruining everything." Her voice, usually so controlled, was shrill, breaking the elegant facade of the reception. It was precisely the reaction I had expected, a desperate attempt to regain control of the narrative, to dismiss me as erratic. "Am I, Mom?" I challenged, my voice rising, fueled by years of silent hurt. "Or am I just finally speaking the truth that you've meticulously hidden behind your carefully curated image of a loving mother? The truth about the countless times you praised Lily's every achievement while my own were dismissed as mere luck? The truth about the way you looked at her as if she were made of starlight, and me, just shadow." My eyes locked with hers, refusing to back down. Lily, pale and visibly distressed, pushed away from the table. "Isabella, please, don't do this." "Not here, not today," she pleaded, her voice cracking. But I couldn't stop. Not now. The dam had broken. "You always wanted us to be perfect, Mom," I stated, my voice echoing through the suddenly tense ballroom. "But perfection comes at a cost, doesn't it? It costs honesty. It costs genuine love. And it cost me my voice. Until now." Every word was a hammer blow, shattering the illusion of the perfect family gathering. Guests exchanged uneasy glances, some whispering behind their hands, others simply staring, transfixed by the unfolding drama. My mother's eyes, usually so sharp and confident, darted around the room, desperately seeking allies, but finding only shocked silence. Her perfectly coiffed hair seemed to droop, her expensive gown suddenly looking like a costume. She opened her mouth, then closed it, struggling to form a coherent retort amidst the public humiliation. "This isn't about jealousy, Lily," I said, turning my gaze to my sister, whose face was now stained with tears. "This is about recognition of a pattern, a lifelong wound that festered in the shadows, fueled by the very person who was supposed to nurture me. Recognition that her words, even at your wedding, confirmed everything I already knew." The air crackled with unspoken accusations, with years of buried pain finally brought to light. My mother finally found her voice, though it was now laced with venom. "You are truly unhinged, Isabella. You're always looking for drama, always trying to make yourself the victim." Her hand trembled as she pointed a finger at me, her face flushed crimson. But her accusations rang hollow against the backdrop of my raw confession. The applause that should have filled the room after a sisterly toast was replaced by an uncomfortable silence, a heavy quiet that threatened to suffocate every last bit of joy from the day. The words still burned, an invisible brand seared onto my soul. I could feel the gazes, the expectant hush after the toasts, and knew this was my moment. The mic, warm from my father's unsteady hand, felt heavy and solid. My mother's smirk, that small, almost imperceptible curl of her lips, was a silent challenge. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat urging me on, yet a part of me recoiled from the inevitable wreckage. I looked at Clara, my beautiful sister, her eyes sparkling with unadulterated joy, oblivious to the storm about to break. It was for her, too, I told myself, for all the quiet damage done in the name of familial loyalty. "I just wanted to add something," I began, my voice surprisingly steady, though a tremor vibrated through my hand gripping the cold metal. The murmur of conversation died down instantly, replaced by the clinking of glasses and a few whispers of curiosity. Mother's eyes, usually so calculating, flickered with annoyance, then a dawning comprehension. She tilted her head slightly, a queen observing a minor disturbance, challenging me with a gaze that dared me to speak out of turn. "It's a beautiful day for love," I continued, a polite nod towards Clara and David. "And a day for truth." A nervous cough rippled through the guests. David looked up, startled, his brow furrowing. "Isabella, darling, perhaps that's enough," my mother interjected, her voice smooth as silk, yet with an iron edge. Her hand reached for my arm, a subtle gesture of control. I pulled away gently, deliberately, letting my eyes meet hers. For a split second, I saw a flicker of fear, quickly masked by a rigid defiance. "No, Mother," I said, my voice rising slightly, carrying across the room. "I think everyone here, especially Clara, deserves to hear the truth about what love truly means in our family." A gasp, hushed and collective, swept through the room. Clara's radiant smile faltered, replaced by a look of utter confusion, then alarm. I turned to face the guests, my gaze sweeping past their curious faces, past the glittering chandeliers, to land on Clara. "Clara, you are truly magnificent, inside and out. Always have been." My voice softened, a genuine tenderness creeping in. "And you deserve a life filled with real, unconditional love. Not the kind that dangles affection like bait, or compares you constantly to an invisible standard." I paused, taking a breath, bracing myself for the impact. My mother's face was now a mask of pure fury, her lips pressed into a thin, bloodless line. She took a step towards me, her hand reaching out, but I held the mic tighter, preventing her approach. "Our mother," I stated, my voice losing its softness, growing sharper, "has always believed that love is a commodity. Something to be earned, to be rationed. And she made it clear, moments before this beautiful ceremony, that I would never be enough to earn her true affection. She said, and I quote, 'You'll never be the favorite, Isabella.'" The words hung in the air, a physical weight. The room exploded into a cacophony of gasps, shocked exclamations, and indignant murmurs. The elegant facade of the wedding shattered, revealing the raw, ugly truth beneath. My mother paled, then flushed crimson, her eyes darting around the room, caught in a spotlight of her own making. She told me this, not in private, but in the middle of the chaos, just minutes before Clara walked down the aisle. I continued, my voice now trembling, not with fear, but with the raw emotion that had been suppressed for decades. "This isn't about me. It's about a pattern of emotional manipulation that has plagued our family for years. It's about the constant competition she fostered between us, the need to always be better, never truly loved for who we are." Clara's hands flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with horror as she looked from me to our mother, her perfect day crumbling before her. The silence that followed was deafening, punctuated only by the distant wail of a child. My mother, finally finding her voice, shrieked, "How dare you! This is a lie! You're ruining your sister's wedding!" Her voice was shrill, desperate, a stark contrast to her usual composed demeanor. Her denial was a flimsy shield, already pierced. "Is it a lie, Mother?" I challenged, my voice a quiet whisper now, but amplified by the mic, cutting through the stunned silence. "Or is it the truth you've spent a lifetime burying beneath a veneer of perfection and calculated affection?" Her eyes, usually so cold, were suddenly filled with tears of rage, not sorrow. She lunged, her hand reaching for the mic, but a guest, perhaps my father, gently intervened, holding her back. The wedding planner, a picture of practiced calm just moments before, looked like a deer caught in headlights. Guests began to whisper, some turning away in embarrassment, others openly staring. Clara, tears streaming down her face, finally found her voice. "Isabella, what are you doing?" Her voice was broken, filled with disbelief and pain. It was a dagger to my heart, but I knew I couldn't stop. The wound was too deep, the truth too necessary. My mother stood there, exposed and trembling, her composure utterly annihilated. The air crackled with shattered expectations, and the lingering scent of lilies mixed with the acrid tang of betrayal. The wedding was no longer a celebration. It was a reckoning. The quiet that followed was strange, heavy. Not peace, but the profound absence of the constant tension that defined our family. Weeks blurred into a month since the wedding, since the raw truth fractured everything. I often found myself at the window watching rain streak down the glass, each droplet a silent echo of tears I refused to shed. My apartment, once a mere space, now felt like a lonely vessel adrift. My phone, after its furious accusations, finally fell silent. Clara, my sister, sent one stark text. "Isabella, you shattered everything." I never replied. What words could explain the cracks were always there, that I'd merely exposed a crumbling foundation? Her accusation settled deep in my chest, a dull ache. This strange freedom, I understood, came with an immeasurable cost, paid in profound solitude. Only my father, with his quiet strength, seemed to grasp it. A week later, he appeared at my door, thermos in hand. He offered no platitudes, just settled onto my couch. His presence was a silent anchor. "You were always too much like me, Bella," he murmured, eyes distant. "Too honest. It hurts, doesn't it? To face what you've been living with." His calloused hand found mine, a comforting pressure. We spoke for hours, not about the wedding, but about unspoken burdens, his own quiet compromises. "Some truths," he confessed, voice a whisper, "are better left untouched, but some, my dear, fester until they demand light." His understanding was a balm, a quiet affirmation I desperately needed. It built a bridge from the wreckage, spanning the chasm that opened between us and our fractured world. The most chilling aspect was my mother's absolute silence. Not a call, not a word. Her face at the wedding, a mask of fury, was seared into my memory. In my new solitude, I wondered if any introspection stirred within her, any flicker of understanding. The wall between us now felt complete, a finality more profound than any angry word. It was the end, not just of a chapter, but of a whole painful book. The silence that followed wasn't heavy or oppressive. It was, for the first time in my life, an exhale. Weeks bled into months after that day, each one peeling away another layer of the skin I'd worn, thick with inherited expectations and unsaid resentments. My sister, Clara, eventually sent a short, formal text. "I understand, Isabella. I don't forgive, but I understand." It was a frail bridge, perhaps, but a bridge nonetheless, built on the debris of a shattered facade. The phone calls from my mother stopped entirely, and with them, the anxious flutter in my stomach whenever it rang. I found myself drawn to moments of profound quiet, like early mornings on my small balcony, sipping lukewarm coffee as the city began to stretch awake. The scent of dew on concrete, the distant rumble of a first train, these simple sensory inputs were anchors, grounding me in a reality I was actively choosing to build. There was no thunderous applause for my act, no grand vindication, only the stark, unsettling truth settling like dust. It wasn't about winning. It was about finally, irrevocably, severing a cord that had choked me for decades. Was it worth it? I whispered to the empty air one twilight evening, watching a lone star appear in the bruised sky. The question wasn't loaded with regret, but with a genuine curiosity about the strange landscape of my new freedom. The answer came not as a voice, but as a feeling, a deep, resonant calm that hummed beneath my skin. The cost had been steep, a tearing of the family fabric, a loss of the easy, performative smiles. Yet the burden lifted felt infinitely heavier than the new lightness I carried. My reflection in the window pane showed a face etched with a quiet strength I hadn't known I possessed. My eyes, once perpetually shadowed with a restless ache, now held a different light, a clarity. It wasn't happiness in the effervescent sense, but a profound sense of authenticity. The daughter who had craved approval was gone, replaced by a woman who understood that her worth was an internal currency, minted not by validation, but by integrity. There was no more chasing shadows, no more attempting to fit into a mold that was never meant for me. The old wounds still throbbed sometimes, phantom pains from a past that refused to be entirely forgotten, but they no longer dictated my steps. I realized that the favorite was a role, a performance, and the freedom of being unchosen was the greatest gift I could have received. It was a liberation, a fierce, protective embrace of myself, flaws and all. The memory of my mother's cruel words at the wedding, "You'll never be the favorite," once a searing brand, had transformed into a strange, distorted kind of blessing. It had pushed me off the precipice and forced me to fly. Sometimes, when I passed by a family laughing in the park or saw a mother's gentle hand on her child's head, a pang of longing would ripple through me. But it was fleeting. quickly replaced by the quiet understanding that the family I had yearned for was never truly available to me in the way I needed. Love, I learned, isn't always fair or gentle or even present where you expect it. And sometimes, the act of speaking your truth, even when it shatters everything, is the most loving thing you can do for yourself. The world outside my window continued its ceaseless, indifferent dance. Cars streamed by, lives unfolded behind countless doors, each with their own unspoken stories, their own quiet battles. I was just one small voice in that vast symphony of human experience, a whisper carried on the wind. My story wasn't an anomaly. It was a testament to the universal ache of wanting to be seen, to be loved, and the ultimate courage it takes to claim that for yourself, even when it means walking away from the very people who gave you life. There was no grand finale, no final confrontation or tearful reconciliation. Life rarely unfolds like a perfectly scripted movie. Instead, it was this quiet, everyday act of living authentically, of choosing peace over pretense, that marked my true ending, or perhaps my true beginning. The truth once unleashed has a way of remaking everything. It reshapes the air you breathe, the ground you walk on, and the very core of who you are. I often think of that wedding day, the flash of cameras, the rustle of silk, the clink of glasses. It was a stage set for a perfect illusion, and I, Isabella, the perpetual outcast, had pulled back the curtain. The silence I live in now is not empty. It is full of the quiet strength of knowing myself, and that I've learned is a love story, far more profound than any fairy tale. It's the kind of love that whispers back, reassuringly, in the still of the night. And in that whispered reassurance, I found my own tender, fragile, yet utterly unshakable peace.